Imagine for a moment that your calendar isn't just a page of dates. It's your life in motion. Every square on that page represents an opportunity, a decision, a moment that will never return once it's gone. Most people don't see it that way. They treat their time casually, as though tomorrow is guaranteed and as if every hour can be borrowed back when convenient. But time doesn't work like that. Once it's spent, it's gone forever. Jim Rohn used to say, "Time is more valuable than money. You can get more money, but you can't get more time." And that's where everything begins, understanding that your calendar isn't a tool for planning your week. It's a reflection of how much you respect your own life. When you truly grasp that, everything changes. You start to guard your time differently. You begin to weigh each commitment, each meeting, each promise. You stop saying yes so easily because you realize that every yes is a withdrawal from your life's most precious account, your time bank. You don't get refunds there. You don't get overdraft protection. The only way to build wealth in this area is to spend your hours with intention. If you want to understand a person's values, don't look at what they say. Look at their calendar. Your schedule reveals your truth. If you claim to value growth, but there's no time blocked out for learning, reading, or reflection, then what you value isn't growth, it's comfort. If you say your family matters most, but your evenings are swallowed by distractions, then what you're protecting isn't family, it's habit. The calendar doesn't lie. It's the most honest mirror of our priorities. Successful people operate with this awareness. They treat their time like a rare currency. They measure their days the way a jeweler measures gold. Carefully, precisely, with an understanding of value. The secret isn't that they have more hours than anyone else. The secret is that they use those hours with discipline. They don't just fill time, they allocate it. They assign meaning to it. They design it in advance. Because they know that the unplanned day is the easiest to waste. There's a certain psychology behind how we treat time. We tend to overestimate what we can do in a day and underestimate what we can accomplish in a year. So we fill our days with busy work, chasing the illusion of progress. But business isn't productivity. A full calendar doesn't mean a meaningful life. Protecting your calendar doesn't mean cramming it with activity. It means aligning it with purpose. It's about filtering what deserves to stay and what must go. It's the art of choosing what truly matters, not what merely demands attention. Jim Rohn often talked about the philosophy of value, about not trading what you want most for what you want now. Protecting your calendar is the ultimate expression of that philosophy. Because every time you say yes to something small, you might be saying no to something great. You might be giving up the quiet hour of thinking, the chapter of a book, the walk with your child, or the deep work that could change the trajectory of your life. And yet, most people hand their time away freely. They give it to distractions, to gossip, to endless scrolling. They let others decide what their day should look like. They live on other people's agendas, not their own. And at the end of the day, they wonder why life feels rushed, unfocused, and out of control. It's simple. If you don't protect your calendar, someone else will fill it for you. To protect your calendar like gold means you must first believe that your time has value, that you have value. It's not arrogance, it's self-respect. It's saying, my life matters too much to waste on what doesn't move me forward. It's understanding that the moments you guard today become the foundation of the future you build tomorrow. And that's the paradox. When you guard your time tightly, life actually opens up. You gain clarity, direction, and peace. You begin to live by design, not default. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop rushing and start moving with purpose. Protecting your time isn't selfish. It's the first step toward contribution. Because when you manage your time well, you have more to give to your work, your family, your community, your legacy. Jim Rohn once said, "Don't let the seasons pass you by." He was reminding us that the days are finite, but their impact can be infinite if used wisely. Every day you waste is a day you can never get back, but every day you protect becomes a building block of greatness. So when you look at your calendar tonight, don't see dates, see decisions. Don't see time, see life. Because the truth is simple: the person who protects their time protects their future. Guard it like gold, because that's exactly what it is. Most people live their days in reaction. They wake up, check their phones, answer messages, attend meetings, respond to requests, and call that being productive. But that isn't productivity, it's a reactivity. You're moving, yes, but not necessarily moving forward. Jim Rohn used to remind his audience, don't start your day until it's finished on paper. In other words, don't let the day dictate your actions. Decide first what deserves to fill your time. Because if you don't schedule your priorities, someone else will. That's the difference between living with design and living by default. Successful people don't prioritize their schedule. They schedule their priorities. The calendar isn't a random list of events. It's a strategic design for your life. Every entry should represent something that matters: your health, your relationships, your growth, your mission. Most people fill their schedule with other people's urgencies. They confuse movement with progress. But the truth is, a busy life isn't necessarily a productive one. Let's take a moment to think about how we approach each day. When you look at your calendar, is it a reflection of what's important to you, or is it filled with what's important to others? The reason this question matters is simple as these: whatever fills your calendar fills your life. As every appointment, every call, every plan is a trade. You're trading time, the one resource you can't renew, for something else. The wise know that the trade must be worth it. When you learn to schedule your priorities, you start living with intention. You stop waiting for the right time to do the things that matter because you've already reserved that time. You block it. You guard it. You protect it from distraction. You make your goals tangible by putting them on the calendar. Want to write a book? Put it on the calendar. Want to learn a new skill, spend time with your family, or exercise daily? Don't hope for it. Schedule it. What's scheduled gets done. What's not scheduled gets lost in the noise of life. There's also a psychological shift that happens when you move from reactive to proactive living. You begin to regain a sense of control. You start to feel that your time belongs to you again. And with that control comes clarity. You stop chasing everything and start focusing on the few things that actually create impact. That's the essence of time mastery. Not working harder, but working others with direction. Jim Rohn often spoke about the law of discipline, the idea that success is nothing more than a few disciplines practiced every day. The calendar is where discipline begins. Because discipline isn't just about willpower, it's about structure. When you place your priorities on the calendar, you remove the need to decide in the moment. You've already decided in advance. The structure protects the discipline. The schedule protects the dream. But here's the trap many people fall into. They fill their calendars to look busy, to feel significant, to avoid stillness. They confuse scheduling with progress. That's not what scheduling your priorities means. This isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters most. It's about identifying the 20% of activities that produce 80% of your results. When you start designing your days around what truly drives growth, learning, creating, connecting, you realize how much unnecessary clutter you were carrying. Another reason many people fail to schedule their priorities is fear of missing out, fear of disappointing others, fear of saying no. But saying no is part of scheduling wisely. Every yes carries a cost. When you say yes to something unimportant, you're saying no to something meaningful. Protecting your calendar requires courage. The courage to disappoint the unimportant so you can honor the essential. And remember, structure doesn't mean rigidity. Life is fluid. Plans change, but your principles shouldn't. The key is flexibility within focus. The day might not always go as planned, but your priorities should always remain clear. That's why it's so powerful to review your calendar each morning, not as a to-do list, but as a reflection of your purpose. Ask yourself, does today reflect what I truly value? If not, redesign it. You are the architect of your time. The greatest lives are not created by chance. They're crafted intentionally. Your calendar is your chisel. Every time you schedule your priorities, you're shaping your future. You're building a life of meaning rather than one of obligation. The irony is, once you learn to take control of your schedule, you actually gain more freedom. Freedom isn't the absence of structure, it's the mastery of it. When your days are aligned with your dreams, every hour becomes a step forward. So don't let the urgent steal from the important. Don't let noise crowd out meaning. Take ownership of your time. Plan your days like an artist designs a masterpiece. Intentionally, patiently, purposefully. Because when you learn to schedule your priorities instead of prioritizing your schedule, you stop living in reaction and start living by design. The calendar is your canvas. Paint your priorities on it before someone else does. One of the hardest truths to accept is that not everyone who wants your time deserves it. Most people don't lose control of their lives in one big moment. They lose it one small interruption at a time. A message here, a phone call there, a quick favor, a meaningless meeting, and before you know it, the day is gone. Jim Rohn used to say, don't major in minor things. And yet, that's what most of us do. We let minor distractions consume major portions of our time. Guarding your calendar means learning to say no. Not because you're rude, but because you're wise. Every time you say yes to something, you're automatically saying no to something else. That's the law of time. There's no way around it. The question isn't whether you'll say yes or no. The question is to what? Most people never ask that question. They live in a state of constant reaction, giving away their hours like spare change. But if time is your gold, then every yes must be an investment, not an impulse. There are time thieves everywhere. Some are external. Endless meetings, unimportant tasks, social media, gossip, trivial obligations. But the most dangerous thieves are internal. The habits of procrastination, distraction, and people-pleasing. The truth is, most people don't need more time, they need more boundaries. You don't protect your calendar by working faster. You protect it by deciding what gets in and what stays out. This isn't about becoming rigid or cold. It's about learning to value your time with discernment. When you guard your calendar, you're not rejecting people, you're rejecting disorder. You're choosing focus over frenzy, depth over distraction, purpose over popularity. There's great dignity in that kind of decision-making. Jim Rohn often said, "We must learn to say no to the good so we can say yes to the best." That's the heart of this principle. Think of your calendar as a fortress. Not everyone gets access. Every appointment, every commitment, every conversation must pass through the gatekeeper of purpose. Ask yourself, does this move me closer to who I want to become? If the answer is no, you don't need to justify your refusal. Protecting your time isn't selfish. It's responsible. It's what allows you to contribute more meaningfully in the long run. Psychologically, many of us struggle with saying no because we equate it with rejection. We don't want to disappoint people. But what we fail to realize is that every time we say yes to someone else's priorities, we might be saying no to our own destiny. The irony is, the people who respect their time most are often the ones who are respected most. They become dependable because they don't overcome it. Their word has weight because it's backed by intention. Guarding your calendar requires emotional strength. It means learning to live with the temporary discomfort of disappointing others so you can avoid the permanent regret of disappointing yourself. It means recognizing that boundaries aren't walls, they're doors that lead to clarity. You can't create meaningful work in a life full of interruptions. Creativity, reflection, strategy all require space. And space only exists when you protect it. There's also a deeper philosophical layer to this idea. When you guard your time, you're making a statement about what you believe life is worth. You're saying, I refuse to treat my hours as disposable. That belief shapes your behavior. You start to approach your time the way a craftsman approaches his tools, with care, respect, and precision. You plan your days like an artist protects his studio, free from unnecessary noise. Jim Rohn once pointed out that people either run the day or the day runs them. When you don't guard your time, the day runs wild. Urgency replaces intention. Everything feels important because you've lost sight of what actually is. Guarding your calendar brings your focus back. It allows you to operate from vision instead of reaction. And here's something remarkable: when you start setting boundaries, the right people respect you more. The wrong ones fall away. You begin to attract opportunities that align with your values, not just your availability. Because when your time has structure, your life gains momentum. You stop being available for distractions, and suddenly distractions stop coming your way. It's not magic, it's clarity. So the next time someone asks for your time, pause before you answer. Ask yourself, is this an investment or a withdrawal? If it's an investment, something that enriches your life, your relationships, or your goals, then give it your best. But if it's a withdrawal, something that drains your focus, energy, or peace, then guard your gold. Your future self will thank you. The truth is, there will always be more demands than time. You can't do everything, but you can do what matters. The secret is learning to filter. Protect your focus the way a jeweler protects a rare gem. Because when you guard your time, you're not just protecting minutes, you're protecting meaning. Say no to the noise so you can say yes to your purpose. That's how you guard your gold. If you were to open the calendar of a truly successful person, someone who's growing, producing, and contributing at a high level, you'd notice something interesting. Their schedule isn't random. It's not just filled with meetings or errands. It's filled with moments of growth, reading, thinking, learning, reflecting, exercising, reviewing goals, all intentionally placed. Their calendar isn't just a record of what they're doing, it's a blueprint of who they're becoming. Jim Rohn used to say, don't start the day until it's finished on paper. That wasn't just advice about planning, it was philosophy. He was teaching that a life worth living must first be designed. And that design begins in your calendar. When you turn your schedule into a personal growth blueprint, you move from simply existing to consciously evolving. Every hour becomes an opportunity for progress. Every day becomes a step toward mastery. Most people, though, never make this shift. They use their calendar as a tool for others, to remember appointments, deadlines, or obligations, but not as a mirror of their own development. The result is a life managed, not led. You can't grow intentionally if your time is always consumed reactively. Growth requires space. Space to think, space to plan, space to refine who you are and what you're becoming. Imagine if you began to treat your calendar as a garden. Every block of time is a seed. What you plant in it determines what you'll harvest in your future. If you plant distractions, you'll reap frustration. If you plant learning, reflection, and discipline, you'll reap wisdom, clarity, and success. The key is to plant deliberately. You don't need a perfect plan, just a consistent one. 1 hour a day invested in growth compounds in extraordinary ways over time. Jim Rohn often spoke about the power of routine, about how the same wind blows on us all. It's the set of the sail that determines the direction. Your calendar is where you set that sail. By scheduling growth, you're no longer at the mercy of the wind. You're guiding it. This is where I'm going. This is who I intend to become. And that kind of clarity gives power to your days. So how do you build a personal growth blueprint? You start small but think big. You block time for the fundamentals, the disciplines that feed your mind, body, and spirit. Reading for knowledge, journaling for reflection, exercise for strength, goal review for direction, learning a new skill for expansion. None of these things happen by accident. They happen because you decide they will. And when you put them on the calendar, you're not just organizing time, you're making a declaration about your future. There's something deeply psychological about scheduling growth. It shifts your identity. You stop thinking like a manager of time and start thinking like an architect of character. You begin to look at your days not in terms of what you did, but in terms of who you became. That's a profound shift. Because success isn't the result of one grand act, it's the accumulation of small, deliberate disciplines practiced daily. But let's be honest, life will test your commitment to this. The urgent will always try to crowd out the important. Emails, notifications, obligations. They'll fight for every inch of your attention. That's why the calendar must become sacred space. When you block time for growth, protect it as if it were an appointment with your future self, because that's exactly what it is. People often underestimate what one disciplined hour can do. 1 hour of focused learning per day equals over 300 hours in a year. That's more than 7 full work weeks devoted to mastery. Imagine the transformation that would come from simply showing up for yourself every day. Not for anyone else, not for applause, just for growth. Jim Rohn called this working harder on yourself than you do on your job. Because when you grow, everything else expands with you. Your influence, your opportunities, your confidence. The calendar becomes the proving ground for that philosophy. Each day you invest in yourself, you raise your capacity to contribute more to the world. The beauty of designing your calendar around growth is that it doesn't just make you more successful, it makes you more fulfilled. Progress gives meaning to time. When you look at your schedule and see moments that feed your mind, energize your body, and strengthen your character, you begin to feel alignment between how you live and who you want to be. That alignment creates momentum. And soon you'll notice something powerful. Growth becomes not just something you do, but something you are. The structure of your days begins to shape the structure of your character. You become intentional, disciplined, creative, and steady. Not by chance, but by choice. So when you look at your calendar, don't just see tasks and appointments. See the story of your becoming. Ask yourself, what am I building here? Who am I designing myself to be? And then fill that calendar with growth. Because the life you want tomorrow is built by the hours you protect today. There's a quiet truth that every successful person eventually discovers. Greatness isn't built in bursts of inspiration. It's built in the ordinary days of consistent discipline. Protecting your calendar means more than just organizing your time. It means showing up for the commitments you've made to yourself. Jim Rohn said it best. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. And that bridge is built one small, deliberate act at a time. We often talk about motivation as if it's the spark that drives achievement. But motivation fades. What replaces it, what keeps the engine running, is consistency. When you fill your calendar with intentional actions and you honor those actions day after day, you begin to build momentum. That's how discipline compounds, quietly, invisibly, powerfully. You don't see it at first, but over time it transforms everything. There's a psychology behind daily discipline. Our brains crave patterns. Every repeated action reinforces identity. When you do something consistently, it stops being something you do and starts becoming part of who you are. A person who reads daily becomes a thinker. Someone who writes daily becomes a communicator. Someone who exercises daily becomes an athlete, not because of the title, but because of the pattern. The calendar then becomes the architect of identity. Jim Rohn often reminded us that success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. And that failure is simply a few errors in judgment repeated over time. That's the dual edge of daily consistency. It can build you, or it can quietly destroy you. Every unchecked hour becomes a vote for your future or against it. The people who master life aren't necessarily the most talented, they're the most consistent with what matters. Think about compound interest. When you invest a little every day, it doesn't seem like much at first. But over months and years, the growth becomes exponential. The same is true with your habits. One disciplined hour today might not look like much, but multiplied over time, it reshapes your results, your mindset, and your destiny. Every time you keep a promise to your calendar, you build trust with yourself. That self-trust becomes confidence, and that confidence fuels momentum. But consistency isn't easy. It's earned. There will always be days when you don't feel like it, when you're tired, uninspired, or overwhelmed. Those are the days that test your commitment. Jim Rohn said, We must all suffer one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. One pain weighs ounces, the other weighs tons. The calendar, when protected with discipline, ensures you choose the lighter pain every time. There's a difference between routine and monotony. Routine creates rhythm, monotony drains it. The secret is to connect your routines to purpose. Don't just work out, train for energy and strength. Don't just read, study to expand your vision. Don't just plan, review to refine your character. When every repeated action is tied to a reason, it becomes meaningful. Purpose turns routine into ritual. And rituals are what keep you grounded when motivation wavers. When you protect your calendar, you're also protecting your focus. You eliminate the need to decide in the moment whether you'll do something. You've already decided in advance. That's what discipline does. It removes decision fatigue. It frees your mind from constant negotiation. The time is blocked, the commitment is made, and the only task left is to honor it. That's where growth happens, in those quiet, repetitive moments when nobody's watching. Consistency also creates credibility, not just with others, but with yourself. When you keep your word to your calendar, you begin to see yourself as dependable, reliable, capable. You stop doubting your potential because you've built evidence of your own strength. You realize that you don't need to control the future. You just need to control today. The rest unfolds naturally. There's a philosophical beauty to discipline. It transforms time from something that passes into something that compounds. Each day you honor your commitments. You're not just managing hours. You're sculpting character. You're building resilience, self-respect, and clarity. And eventually, your results begin to mirror your routines. What once felt like effort becomes effortless. What once felt like sacrifice becomes second nature. Jim Rohn often said, "The formula for success is simple. A few disciplines practiced every day. The calendar is where those disciplines live. It's where vision meets action, where goals meet reality. Protect it, and you protect your potential. Neglect it, and you surrender your growth to chance. So keep your promises to yourself, to your time, to your craft. Show up even when it's inconvenient. Because in the end, greatness is never about one big leap. It's about the thousands of small steps taken faithfully, deliberately, consistently. Honor your calendar. Honor your word. Because the habits you repeat become the life you live. Most people treat their calendar as something to fill, but few treat it as something to study. They plan, they schedule, they move through their days. But they rarely pause to ask, how well did this actually work? Jim Rohn often emphasized reflection as the key to wisdom. He would say, don't just go through the day. Get from the day. The difference between the average performer and the exceptional one is that the exceptional person doesn't just live, they learn. And the place to start learning is your own calendar. A well-used calendar is like a journal of your choices. It tells the truth about how you've spent your life, where your energy went, what you valued, and what you ignored. That's why reviewing it regularly is so important. A weekly reflection turns your calendar from a static tool into a dynamic feedback system. It's where you turn experience into insight. Because it's not enough to plan well, you must also adjust well. Every week, take time to sit down, quietly, honestly, and look at where your hours went. What did you accomplish? What fell through the cracks? Which commitments energized you, and which ones drained you? Where did you keep your promises to yourself, and where did you break them? This is not about judgment. It's about clarity. You can't improve what you refuse to examine. Jim Rohn called this process the refinement of philosophy. Every week that passes gives you data. It shows you patterns, how you handle pressure, where you procrastinate, how you prioritize. Those patterns reveal your real disciplines and your real distractions. Once you see them clearly, you gain the power to change them. Reflection gives direction to discipline. Without it, you're just repeating the same mistakes on a cleaner calendar. Think of your weekly review as an executive meeting with yourself. You are the CEO of your time, the strategist of your destiny. Look at your calendar like a business analyst would, searching for inefficiencies, misalignments, and opportunities. Maybe you notice that your mornings are often lost to distractions, or that you say yes too often in the afternoons. Maybe you realize that your free time isn't free at all. It's filled with unintentional business. That awareness is priceless. Once you see the leak, you can fix it. There's also a deeper psychological benefit to reflection. It gives you a sense of control. Most people feel overwhelmed because their time feels scattered and reactive. A weekly review pulls all those fragments back together. It gives you a narrative. You stop feeling like life is happening to you and start realizing it's happening through you. That shift from chaos to clarity changes everything. This process also nurtures gratitude. When you pause to review, you notice the good you might have overlooked. The progress, the small wins, the meaningful moments. Gratitude is fuel for motivation. It reminds you that growth is happening even when it's slow. Reflection, then, becomes not just a tool for improvement, but a practice for appreciation. And here's where the philosophy deepens. Life moves in seasons. Some weeks are about expansion, others about maintenance, others about rest. A wise person doesn't fight these rhythms, they study them. Reviewing your calendar helps you identify your current season. Are you pushing too hard when it's time to rest? Are you coasting when it's time to build? The calendar reveals your balance, or lack of it. And when you can see your rhythm, you can restore harmony. Jim Rohn often taught that success is built on measured progress. Discipline measured, not imagined. Your weekly reflection is that measure. It turns vague ambition into concrete accountability. You can see your growth, you can track your discipline. And most importantly, you can adjust before small misalignments become major problems. There's also a humility that comes from review. It reminds you that no plan is perfect, no schedule unbreakable. Flexibility is part of mastery. The point isn't to control every minute, it's to make sure your minutes reflect your mission. Review teaches you to adapt without losing direction, to course correct without guilt. That's maturity. Make reflection a ritual. Sunday evening, Friday night, Monday morning, whatever time you choose, make it sacred. Sit down with your calendar, your notes, your thoughts, and ask yourself 3 simple questions. 1. What went well this week? 2. What didn't go as planned? 3. What will I do differently next time? That's all it takes to transform your schedule from a habit into a system of growth. Because every reflection strengthens the next plan. Every lesson becomes a strategy, and soon your weeks begin to build on each other. Not just repeating, but refining. Your calendar, when reviewed and refined, becomes more than a planner. It becomes a compass. It points you toward greater alignment, deeper purpose, and smarter use of your most valuable resource, time. So don't just fill your calendar, study it, refine it, learn from it. Because mastery isn't in the planning, it's in the reflection. If I were to look at your calendar today, I could tell you almost everything about your future. Not because of fate or intuition, but because the calendar reveals what you truly value. It's a mirror of your priorities, your focus, your energy. Jim Rohn used to say, either you run the day or the day runs you. And that statement captures the essence of this final truth: your calendar defines your future. Every moment on that page represents a decision, a choice to invest your time or to spend it carelessly. Most people underestimate the power of those small choices. They think the future is built in grand achievements or sudden breakthroughs, but it isn't. It's built quietly, hour by hour, through what you choose to give your attention to. The future doesn't begin tomorrow. It begins on your calendar today. Think about this: if you filled your days with learning, gratitude, and action, where would you be a year from now? Now imagine the opposite. If your days were filled with distraction, procrastination, and reaction, where would that lead? The answer is simple. Your future is already being written, not in your dreams, but in your schedule. The calendar is the seedbed of destiny. Whatever you plant, there will grow, whether it's growth or stagnation, discipline or delay. Jim Rohn believed that a person's calendar was a moral document. It doesn't lie. It tells the truth about how you treat your life. You can say you want success, but if your calendar is filled with idleness, you don't really want success. You just want the feeling of wanting it. You can say you value health, but if your calendar doesn't show time for rest, nutrition, and exercise, what you truly value is comfort. Your schedule exposes the gap between intention and action. And the smaller that gap becomes, the more powerful your life becomes. There's a deep psychology behind this. We often separate our goals from our habits, as though one belongs to our dreams and the other to our duties. But in truth, they are one and the same. Your habits are the visible structure of your beliefs. The calendar is where belief meets behavior. If you want to change your life, you must first change what fills your days. Every great achiever, in every field, has learned this lesson. They may not all have used the same words, but the principle is identical. They take control of their time. They treat their hours as sacred. They don't wait for motivation, they rely on structure. They understand that the calendar isn't a cage. It's freedom. It's what allows them to live by design rather than default. When you begin to see your calendar this way, it stops being a list of tasks and becomes a vision board in motion. Every appointment becomes an act of intention. Every block of time becomes a piece of architecture in the house of your life. The structure doesn't limit you. It liberates you. It ensures that what you claim to care about actually receives space to exist. But this requires courage. It means confronting the uncomfortable truth that where you are today is a reflection of how you've used your time up to now. Not luck, not circumstance, just time. Once you take responsibility for that, everything changes. Responsibility gives you power. It shifts you from victim to creator. You can't change yesterday's schedule, but you can redesign tomorrow's. That's the beauty of it. Every new week is a blank page. Every new morning is a new chance to realign. You don't have to overhaul your entire life at once. You just have to make better appointments with yourself. Block time for what builds you, what matters most, what moves the needle forward. Protect that time with the same care you'd give to your most valuable asset, because it is your most valuable asset. And remember, The calendar doesn't just organize your external world, it shapes your internal one. The way you use your time changes the way you think. When your days are intentional, your mind becomes clearer. When your schedule reflects discipline, your spirit feels stronger. You begin to live not in fragments, but in focus. Jim Rohn often said, the few who do are the envy of the many who only watch. The people who truly do, who achieve, grow, and lead, are simply those who decided to manage their minutes as carefully as others manage their money. Their calendar is their contract with destiny. They don't wait for opportunity, they schedule it. So, if you ever wonder where your life is headed, don't look at your dreams, look at your days. Look at what you've committed to on your calendar. Because your future isn't somewhere you arrive by accident. It's something you build, hour by hour, appointment by appointment, with intention and consistency. The truth is simple but profound. Show me your calendar, and I'll show you your destiny. Protect it, design it, and live it, because the future you desire is already waiting inside the days you choose today.